Bonjour, Black Knight Scholars. This is Mr. Deegan with another edition of VidNotes videos. We're continuing our study of Unit 4, the Era of Revolutions. And this lesson, Lesson 3, we are dealing with the Enlightenment. And I talk in French, bonjour, because we're going to be talking mostly about French philosophers. You see here a painting of a French salon. The people in this room are not getting haircuts. They are talking about philosophy. They're called French philosophes, and they're talking about big questions of the day. That's what the Enlightenment was all about. So what is the Enlightenment? The Enlightenment is a period in history in which philosophers applied reason to the human world. When was it? It took place in the 1600s and the 1700s in Europe. And these philosophers in this room and in Europe in general saw Newton's law of gravity, and they said to themselves, if there were rules that explain how objects in the sky behave, then there must be laws in nature that explain how people behave. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. What did the Enlightenment accomplish? Why do we need to talk about it? Well, it stimulated and started religious tolerance in Europe. It applied reason to the issues of law and government. And it also fueled democratic revolutions around the world. So the Enlightenment was an important time for thinkers to discover things about human nature. I'm in the VidNote zone to talk about human nature and men of the Enlightenment who studied it. First, Thomas Hobbes, who is from the country of England. These are his beliefs about human nature. He said, humans are born sinful and need a strong central government to protect them from their evil natures. Without a strong central government, people would constantly war with one another. His beliefs about government. Hobbes believed absolute monarch is the best kind of government because only a strong ruler can keep peace and stability and prevent people from causing chaos. Thomas Hobbes favored the idea of King Louis XIV of France and Peter the Great of Russia, two absolute monarchs. And the title of his best work was called Leviathan. Leviathan is actually Hebrew for sea monster. And in his book, he argued that a government needs to have a strong ruler that sometimes acts cruel like a sea monster so that the people will fear the government and never start a civil war to overthrow it. Next, John Locke. Here he is. He is from England. His beliefs about human nature. He said, humans are born sovereign. Sovereign means independent and can think for themselves. Also, he said, every human is born with natural rights of life, liberty, and property. It's the government's job, Locke said, to protect those rights. Humans can think for themselves, said Locke, and his beliefs about government. Democracy is the best form of government because it allows people to use their ability to reason to govern themselves. And Locke's title of his best work is called Two Treatises of Government. In this book, he writes that the divine right of kings is baloney. He says people can reason for themselves about how to worship their God. They don't need a king to be the spokesperson for God. God can be directly connected to each person, not just the king. Thirdly, Baron de Montesquieu of France. Here he is. Here are his beliefs about human nature. He said societies naturally divide into social classes, but feudalism is still bad and should be abolished. His beliefs about government. Montesquieu said, we should have a separation of powers where governments should have more than one branch so that one person or one group cannot become too powerful. He also said that he believed three branches was the best, and the title of his best work was called The Spirit of Laws. And in this work, he talks about branches of government, and the American founding fathers use his ideas to develop three branches. Now, let's go back to me in my apartment. Jean-Jacques Rousseau is our next philosopher from France. Here he is with the fashionable French wig and wear of the day. And what did he believe about society? Rousseau believed that humans are born as a blank slate, but the influences of society often have a negative impact on someone. Rousseau believed that any kind of government is a social contract between the rulers and the citizens. And in this contract, the citizen's job is to obey the law to prevent chaos, and the government's job in this contract is to protect its citizens. And Rousseau's most famous writing was called The Social Contract. Next, another French philosopher. This philosopher's name was Voltaire. He gave himself this pen name. It was not his birth name. Voltaire, you see him here, another fashionable French wig, and he believed in religious toleration. He believed religious toleration should triumph over religious fanaticism. Religious fanatics made a society worse off. And Voltaire believed it's the government's job to ensure a separation of church and state. And the founding fathers of the United States used his ideas in our Constitution. And the book that he expressed these ideas in was called Candide. Voltaire's work is Candide. What influence did the Enlightenment have after it was over? Well, the Enlightenment first influenced leaders of the American Revolution and the writing of the Declaration of Independence. More specifically, Thomas Jefferson used John Locke's ideas of life, liberty, and property, and the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights, two of the most important founding documents in our country's history, incorporated Enlightenment ideas. Moving to Europe, the Enlightenment sparked the French Revolution of the 1790s. After the American Revolution, the French have a revolution of their own, and they use Locke and Montesquieu and Rousseau and Voltaire to feed their revolution. We're almost done, Black Knight scholars. We have but a few summary questions remaining. Next lesson, we're going to be traveling to England to talk about a civil war in the 1600s between King Charles I and the Puritan Oliver Cromwell. Until next time, this is Mr. Deegan saying so long.